Last Christmas, my whole family gathered around the dinner table just like we always did. Mum sat at the head smiling proudly at her three sons as if everything was perfect. Ethan and Maya were close together, their fingers intertwined beneath the tablecloth. Derek arrived 45 minutes late, but Mum still saved him the biggest piece of turkey. I watched it all unfold, and now I wonder why I never saw what was coming. Looking back, every warning sign was right there, and I missed all of them. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If you have ever felt like the overlooked sibling in your family, hit that like button. And if you want to hear how one act of betrayal tore my family apart forever, make sure you subscribe and stay with me. Let me take you back to where it all began so you can understand why that Christmas dinner was the beginning of the end. My name is Nathan, and I am the middle child in a family of 3 boys. There is Derek, who is 32 now, then me at 28, and Ethan, the youngest, at 25. Our father died in a car accident when I was only 8 years old. Derek was 12, old enough to remember everything, and Ethan was just 5, too young to fully understand what had happened. Mum became a widow overnight, left alone to raise 3 boys in a small house in Ohio, with nothing but a part-time job and a broken heart. From that day forward, something shifted in our home. Mum looked at Derek differently. He was the oldest. He was supposed to step up. She started calling him the man of the house, even though he was just a kid himself. Every decision she made, she would ask Derek first. Every time something went wrong, she would shield him from the consequences. I remember when Derek broke the neighbor's window playing baseball. Mom paid for it and told Derek it was fine, accidents happen. When I accidentally knocked over a lamp a week later, I had to do extra chores for a month to pay it off. That was just the beginning. As we grew older, the favoritism became impossible to ignore. Derek graduated high school with barely passing grades, and Mum threw him a huge party. She invited all the relatives, made his favorite pot roast, and gave a speech about how proud she was of her firstborn. 2 years later, Ethan graduated as valedictorian of his class with a full scholarship to college. Mum nodded and said that is expected. You are the smart one. There was no party, there was no speech, just a quick dinner and a card with $20 inside. I sat in the middle watching it all happen, trying to keep the peace. I was not the golden child like Derek, and I was not the forgotten one like Ethan. I was just there, the buffer between 2 extremes, the one who tried to make everyone get along. After college, Derek bounced from job to job. He would get hired, show up late too many times, and get fired. This cycle repeated for almost 2 years. During that time, Mum paid his rent, his car payment, and his credit card bills. She would say, Derek is going through a tough time. He has so much pressure on him. He needs our support. Meanwhile, Ethan had been working part-time jobs since he was 16. He paid for his own books, his own clothes, and even helped Mum with groceries when things got tight. She never once thanked him. She just expected it, one Thanksgiving. I finally said something. I pulled Mum aside in the kitchen and asked her why she treated Derek so differently. She looked at me like I had slapped her across the face. What are you talking about? She said. I love all my boys equally. I told her about the parties, the money, the praise that Derek got for doing nothing, while Ethan worked himself to exhaustion for a fraction of the recognition. She shook her head and said Derek lost his father when he needed him most. He carries that weight every single day. You and Ethan cannot understand that. I wanted to scream. We all lost our father. We all carried that weight. But Derek was the only one allowed to struggle. The rest of us just had to keep moving forward. When Ethan was 22, he met a girl named Maya. They crossed paths at the public library downtown, both reaching for the same book on the history shelf. Ethan told me later that he almost let her have it, but something made him speak up instead. They ended up talking for 3 hours that day, sitting on the floor between the shelves, laughing about everything and nothing. Maya was different from anyone Ethan had ever dated. She was a 3rd-grade teacher with a gentle voice and a warm smile that could light up any room. She loved kids, loved her job, and loved life in a way that made everyone around her feel lighter. The first time she came to our house for dinner, she brought a homemade apple pie and spent the entire evening helping Mum clean up the kitchen. Mum liked her immediately, though she still could not resist asking Ethan. Later, are you sure she is good enough for our family? I wanted to laugh at that. Maya was more than good enough. She was exactly what Ethan needed. For the first time in his life, my little brother seemed genuinely happy. He talked more during family dinners. He smiled without hesitation. He finally had someone in his corner, someone who saw him for who he really was. Derek had been dating a woman named Heather for almost 4 years. She was ambitious, career-driven, and increasingly frustrated with Derek's lack of direction. They broke up 6 months before Ethan proposed to Maya. Heather told Derek she was tired of waiting for him to figure out his life. She wanted a partner, not a project. Derek moped around for weeks, and Mum babied him through every moment of it. That was when I first noticed Derek paying attention to Maya. It started small. He would show up to family gatherings earlier than usual, always making sure to sit near her. He asked about her students, her lesson plans, her hobbies. Maya was polite because that was who she was. She answered his questions with a friendly smile, never thinking anything of it. But I saw the way Derek looked at her when she was not watching. There was something in his eyes that made my stomach turn. I mentioned it to Ethan one night. We were sitting on his apartment balcony drinking beers and watching the sunset. I told him I thought Derek was getting a little too friendly with Maya. Ethan laughed and shook his head. That is just how Derek is, he said. He is trying to be a good brother. Do not worry about it. But I could not stop worrying. Derek started showing up at Maya's school under the guise of picking up our cousin's daughter. He would text her links to travel blogs because he knew she loved exploring new places. He would bring up inside jokes from family dinners, trying to create some kind of connection that did not exist. Maya mentioned it to Ethan once, and Ethan brushed it off again. He is just being friendly, he said. He is probably lonely after the breakup. I went to Mum next. I told her I was concerned about the amount of time Derek was spending around Maya. She waved her hand dismissively. Derek is just trying to be a good future brother-in-law, she said. You are always so suspicious of him. Why can you not give him the benefit of the doubt I gave up after that? No one wanted to see what was right in front of them. 2 years into their relationship, Ethan proposed to Maya at the Botanical Gardens, where they had their first official date. She said yes through tears, and for a brief moment, everything felt right. The engagement party was held at Mum's house with about 30 guests, packed into the living room and backyard. It was a warm night full of laughter and congratulations. Derek drank too much that night. When it came time for toasts, he stood up with his glass raised and his words slightly slurred. He talked about how lucky Ethan was, how Maya was one of a kind, how some men search their whole lives for a woman like her and never find one. He looked directly at Maya when he said, "You are extraordinary." The room went quiet for a moment, and I felt a chill run down my spine. But then everyone clapped and the moment passed. Later that night, I stepped outside for some air and found Derek standing alone on the back porch. He was staring through the window at Maya, who was inside laughing with Ethan. I did not say anything. I just watched him watching her, and I knew right then that something terrible was going to happen. 3 months after the engagement party, Derek lost his job again. His boss finally had enough of his tardiness and let him go without severance. Mum immediately offered to let Derek move back home to save money while he figured things out. He accepted without hesitation. What none of us expected was how quickly Derek would insert himself into Maya's life. Ethan had just been promoted at his company and was working longer hours than ever. He would leave before sunrise and come home after dark, exhausted but proud of the progress he was making. He wanted to save enough money to buy Maya a house after the wedding. He wanted to give her the life she deserved. While Ethan was working himself to the bone, Derek was home playing the role of the wounded soul. He would sit in the kitchen when Maya came over, telling her about his struggles, his failures, his fears. Maya, with her endless compassion, listened to every word. She offered encouragement and advice, believing she was just being a supportive future sister-in-law. Derek saw it differently. He interpreted her kindness as something more. "You are the only one who understands me, Maya," he told her one evening. "Everyone else just sees me as a screw-up. But you actually listen. You actually care." Maya told me about that conversation later. She said it made her uncomfortable, but she did not want to cause drama in the family. She thought if she just kept things friendly and surface level, Derek would eventually move on. Mum made things worse without realizing it. She started asking Maya to bring food over for Derek because he was so depressed. She encouraged Maya to check on him when Ethan was at work. "Poor Derek needs support right now," she would say, "and you are such a kind girl. He looks forward to your visits." I confronted Mum about it. I told her it was inappropriate to push Maya towards spending time alone with Derek. She snapped at me. "Are you jealous of your own brother?" she asked. "Are you trying to start problems? Derek would never do anything to hurt Ethan. He is family." I should have pushed harder. I should have grabbed Ethan by the shoulders and forced him to see what was happening. But I told myself I was overreacting. I told myself that Derek, for all his faults, would never cross that line. I was wrong. One Tuesday night, Ethan was out of town for a 3-day business conference. I decided to stop by Mum's house unannounced to drop off some tools I had borrowed. It was around 9 in the evening and the house was mostly dark. Derek's car was parked in the driveway, but no lights were on in the living room or kitchen. I walked up to the front door and was about to knock when I noticed movement through the side window. The blinds were partially open and I could see into Derek's old bedroom. 2 shadows were close together, too close for anything innocent. My heart stopped. I stood there frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. I wanted to burst through the door and confront them right then and there. But something held me back. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was cowardice. Maybe some part of me still could not believe what I was seeing. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of Derek's car with the timestamp visible. Then I walked back to my truck and sat there in the dark for almost an hour trying to figure out what to do. Do I tell Ethan? Do I confront Derek? Do I pretend I did not see anything? That night, I did not sleep at all. 1 week later, the decision was made for me. Ethan found the messages himself. He had picked up Maya's phone to check the time and saw a notification from Derek. Curious, he opened it. What he found was months of conversations that started innocent and gradually became something else entirely. Flirtatious texts, confessions of feelings, and finally proof that those feelings had been acted upon. Ethan called me at 2 in the morning. His voice was barely a whisper, cracked and hollow, like something inside him had shattered. Did you know? He asked me. Did anyone know I told him about that Tuesday night? I told him what I saw through the window. I apologized for not saying anything sooner, for not protecting him, for letting it get this far. There was silence on the other end of the phone. Then I heard something I had never heard before in my entire life. Ethan was crying. Not just tears, but deep broken sobs that seemed to come from somewhere primal. He had not cried like that since Dad's funeral, and even then he was too young to fully understand. This was different. This was grief for a future that had been stolen from him. Ethan demanded a family meeting at Mum's house the following Sunday. He wanted everyone there, no excuses. I arrived early to find Ethan sitting on the front porch staring at nothing. His eyes were red, his jaw tight. He had aged 10 years in a single week. Derek showed up last, his face a mixture of guilt and defiance. He knew what was coming. Maya did not come at all. She had already packed her things and moved out of the apartment she shared with Ethan. She left behind only a short note saying she was sorry. We gathered in the living room. Mum sat in her usual chair looking nervous, but somehow still not grasping the severity of what was about to happen. Ethan stood in the center of the room, his phone clutched in his hand. He did not waste time with pleasantries. He unlocked his phone and handed it to Mom. "Read it," he said. Mum scrolled through the messages slowly. Her face changed as she read, shifting from confusion to disbelief to something that almost looked like denial. When she finished, she set the phone down on the coffee table and was silent for a long moment. "There must be some explanation," she finally said. Ethan let out a laugh that had no humor in it. "Explanation? He slept with my fiancée Mom. What explanation could possibly make that okay?" Derek shifted in his seat. He ran a hand through his hair and sighed like this whole situation was just an inconvenience. "Look," he said, "it just happened. We did not plan it. These things are complicated. Love is complicated." Ethan stepped toward him, fists clenched at his sides. "Love. You do not know what love is. You saw something that belonged to someone else, and you took it because you have never been told no in your entire life." I expected Mom to intervene to finally see Derek for who he really was. Instead, she reached out and touched Derek's arm. "Derek has been through so much lately," she said. "Losing his job, the breakup with Heather. Maybe he was just lonely. And Maya should have known better. She was the one who was engaged. She is the one who broke her promise, not Derek." I could not believe what I was hearing. Even now, even faced with undeniable proof of what Derek had done, Mum was finding ways to excuse him. She was blaming Maya, the victim's fiancé, instead of her own son, who had pursued her deliberately and methodically. Ethan turned to look at Mom with an expression I will never forget. It was not anger. It was something worse. It was resignation, the look of someone who had finally stopped hoping. "I am your son too, Mum," he said quietly. "When are you going to see that? When are you going to choose me?" Mum opened her mouth to respond, but Ethan held up his hand. "No, I am done. Not just with Derek. With all of this." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the engagement ring. He had been carrying it with him since Maya left. He set it gently on the coffee table next to his phone. "I spent my whole life trying to be good enough," he said. "Trying to earn a fraction of what you give Derek just for existing. and it was never enough. I was never enough. He looked at Mum one final time. "I hope Derek was worth it," he said. Then he turned and walked out the front door. He did not look back. I sat there in the silence that followed, watching Mum's face crumble and Derek stare at the floor. Mum turned to me with tears in her eyes. "Nathan, go talk to him. Tell him we can work this out. Tell him Derek is sorry. Family has to forgive." I stood up slowly. I looked at my mother, the woman who had raised me, who had loved me in her own flawed way, and I realized that she would never change. She would never see what her favoritism had done to us. She would never understand that she had not raised 3 sons. She had raised 1 prince and 2 servants. "Mom, I said you had 2 sons who loved you unconditionally. After today, you might have none." I walked out after Ethan. I found him sitting in his car in the driveway, hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. I knocked on the window and he unlocked the door. I climbed into the passenger seat and we sat there together in silence for a long time. "Where are you going to go?" I finally asked. "Anywhere but here," he said. I nodded. "Then I will help you pack." The next few weeks were a blur of cardboard boxes and long drives. Ethan found an apartment in Columbus about 2 hours away, far enough to start over, close enough that I could visit. He did not tell Mum where he was going. He did not tell Derek either. Derek and Maya tried to make their relationship official after everything came out. They posted pictures on social media, went out to restaurants together, acted like they had done nothing wrong. It lasted about 4 months. Maya ended things when she realized Derek was the same man with her that he had been his whole life. Aimless, irresponsible, always expecting someone else to clean up his messes. She reached out to Ethan once, sending a long message apologizing for everything. Ethan read it, deleted it, and never responded. Mum called me constantly in those early months. She would cry about how the family was falling apart, how she never meant for any of this to happen, how she just wanted her boys back together. I listened sometimes. Other times I let the calls go to voicemail. One night I finally told her the truth. "You chose this, Mum," I said. "Every single time you chose Derek over Ethan, over me, you pushed us further away. You cannot spend 20 years playing favourites and then act surprised when the family breaks." She did not have an answer for that. 2 years have passed since that Sunday afternoon. Ethan is doing better now. It took time. There were dark months when he barely left his apartment, when he screened every call and avoided anything that reminded him of Maya. But slowly, piece by piece, he started to rebuild. He joined a volunteer group that builds houses for families in need. That is where he met a woman named Kara. She is different from Maya in almost every way. Quieter, more reserved, with a dry sense of humour that catches you off guard. She knows about Ethan's past, about the betrayal and the family rift. She never pushed him to talk about it. She just stayed. And eventually, staying was enough. I visited Ethan last month. We sat on his new balcony drinking coffee and watching the sunrise. He smiled more than I had seen him smile in years. Not the forced smiles he used to give at family dinners, but real ones, the kind that reach your eyes. I asked him if he ever thought about reaching out to Mum or Derek. He was quiet for a moment, then shook his head. "I used to," he said. "I used to lie awake at night thinking about what I would say to them, how I would make them understand what they did to me. But then I realized something. I do not need them to understand. I do not need their apology. I just need to be okay. And for the first time in my life, I think I actually am." Mom had a health scare 6 months ago. Her doctor found an issue with her heart, and she spent a week in the hospital. She called all 3 of us. I went to visit. Derek showed up for about 30 minutes, complained about the parking, and left because he had somewhere else to be. Ethan sent flowers but did not come. I sat with Mum in that hospital room holding her hand while she cried. "I did this," she said. "I destroyed my own family. I did not argue with her. I did not try to make her feel better. Some truths are too heavy to soften. She is home now recovering. We talk on the phone sometimes, but it is different. There is a distance between us that was not there before. Maybe it will close with time. Maybe it will not. Derek is still Derek. He moved to another state last year, chasing another job that probably will not last. We do not talk much. When we do, it is surface level. How is work? How is the weather? Nothing real, nothing that matters. I think about that Christmas dinner a lot. The one where we all sat together pretending to be a happy family. I wonder what would have happened if I had spoken up sooner. If I had forced everyone to see what was right in front of them. But I have learned that you cannot save people from themselves. You can only decide how much of their destruction you are willing to witness. If there is one thing this experience taught me, it is that favoritism is poison. It does not just hurt the child who is overlooked, it also destroys the one who is favored. Derek never learned boundaries because no one ever set them for him. He never faced consequences because Mum always shielded him. And when he finally wanted something he could not have, he took it anyway, because that was all he knew how to do. Ethan spent his whole life feeling invisible in his own home. He worked twice as hard for half the recognition. He loved twice as deeply because he knew what it felt like to not be loved enough. The betrayal broke something in him, but it also set him free. He no longer had to chase approval that was never coming. He could finally just be himself. And I learned that staying neutral is its own kind of choice. That watching injustice happen and saying nothing makes you part of it. I should have fought harder for Ethan. I should have stood up to Mom years ago. I carry that regret with me every day. Our family will probably never be whole again. That Christmas dinner was the last time all 5 of us were in the same room. Some wounds are too deep to heal with time and apologies. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. But here is what I want you to take from this story. Walking away from toxic family dynamics is not giving up. It is not betrayal. It is not weakness. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. Sometimes it is the only way to save yourself. Ethan chose himself for the first time in his life, and that choice led him to peace. It led him to Kara. It led him to mornings on the balcony, watching the sun rise over a city where no one expected him to be anything other than who he is. That is not a tragedy. That is a triumph. If you have ever felt unseen in your own family, if you have ever been the one who gave everything and received nothing, I want you to know that your worth is not determined by the people who failed to see it. You deserve more, and it is never too late to go find it. I want to ask you something before you go. Have you ever had to walk away from family to protect your own peace? Or have you witnessed favoritism tear apart the people you love? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is going through the same thing. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like to help others find it. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss the next story. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. Sometimes a story is all it takes to help someone feel less alone. Thank you for being here and for listening until the very end. I hope whatever you are carrying right now feels a little lighter. Take care of yourself and remember you are worthy of love that does not come with conditions.